Hello again. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Adam Long, the co host of Movie Geeks United. Along with my co host Jamie Duvall, we do a show once a month where we talk about the Blu ray releases. And usually I'm doing these videos as kind of a component for the show where you can see the videos I've received. But this week we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm joined by a friend here. And you'll see this is the Zuni Warrior doll from the film Trilogy of Terror. Now, I've wanted one of these dolls just about my entire life, I guess you would say, since the age of 4. I finally got one. This is not the original doll from the film, but it's pretty darn close. What it is, it's molded from the last surviving model that was used in the film. And it's about 15 inches tall. And if you've seen the film, you realize how important it is to keep this chain on the doll so that the doll and the spirit do not become one. And the doll will try to attack you if that happens, if you've seen the film. It's pretty neat. The detail on this thing's pretty amazing. You even get the Zuni Warrior spear here that you get. That was in the film as the doll was seen in the film. This film traumatized a lot of people. Didn't really traumatize me. I was just fascinated by it. I was a little scared, I admit. But essentially what the film is, it is a 3 horror stories pinned by, the first 2 I think are William F. Nolan, I believe, pinned the first 2. But they're based on Richard Matheson stories. And the last one is pinned by Richard Matheson, the famous sci-fi horror writer. And the story essentially is that a doll comes to life and attacks Karen Black for the last, 15 minutes of the film. I first became aware of the film with this TV guide from the week of March 1st through the 8th of 1975. As you can see here, this is, they're promoting Chico and the Man in this particular thing. My dad was a subscriber to TV Guide. We got it in the mail every week. I want to say we got it on Thursdays, I believe, if memory serves, for the following week. And I couldn't read at the time. It was before school, and I had not learned to read. But my neighbor always tells me that I would memorize the TV Guide listings from start to finish, and would basically ask adults questions. If I saw a picture, I would ask and inquire, what's this about? And then I would go and recite the entire contents of the TV Guide to my neighbor. That's what she tells me anyway. I was a little bit too young to remember that. Well, this was yet another film. I was to start kindergarten in the fall of 1975. But this was March 4th, 1975, when Trilogy of Terror aired. And so I distinctly recall seeing what you're seeing here. This a little piece that they did on the special effects for the film from that March 1st through the 8th, 1975 issue of TV Guide. And it was fascinating to a 4-year-old child, or the 4-year-old child that I was. I wanted to know more. What's this all about? And so I asked incessant questions of anybody who would answer them, and they somewhat filled in the blanks for me, rather. And so as it turned out, my father was occupied with other things. I think he was working late or something. Anyway, he wasn't there when Trilogy of Terror started that night. It aired at, I want to say 8:30, I believe it aired. And the film, I'm sure if he knew exactly what was going on in that film, he probably would have not wanted me to see it. But being that he wasn't there and my mom was a little bit of a softie, I watched the film in its entirety. And the final sequence was just mind-blowing for a 4-year-old child. It was a little unnerving, yes, but in a good way. I just thought it was fantastic. And then I couldn't stop talking about Trilogy of Terror for the next, I don't know, year or 6 months or whatever it was. Time seemed to move a lot slower back when you were a child, especially when you were a child of the 1970s and there weren't as many distractions as we all know. And eventually my dad, his attitude was put a lid on it, stop talking about it, that's just the way he was. And that's a whole other subject unto itself, which we won't go into right now. But anyway, so back in those days before video, you had to wait until the film was either shown a second time on broadcast television or put into syndication. I didn't get a chance to see Trilogy of Terror again until October of 1979 when our local ABC affiliate ran Trilogy of Terror. And here's the interesting part. Around the fall of 1979, I first became aware of Kolchak the Night Stalker. Now, Kolchak the Night Stalker ran from 74 to 75. I'm sure we watched it weekly. It was on Friday nights, but I just didn't have any memory of seeing it. And then CBS, because the show failed, it only ran for one season, and then CBS decided to pick it up as part of its late night lineup on Friday nights. And our local CBS affiliate that was in the Spartanburg area, we had two of them. We had one in the Charlotte area, and we had one from Spartanburg. The Charlotte one did not carry Kolchak or the CBS late night on Friday nights. They opted to run old television programs. There was a show that they did locally called Those Were the Years, and so they had one of their local personalities host these old television shows. I don't know why they didn't opt for the CBS late night feed. Whatever. I had to depend on the one coming out of Spartanburg. But nevertheless, I started watching Kolchak the Night Stalker in the fall of 1979, and it became a regular routine for me. Could not wait. I was in the 4th grade by that time. Could not wait for Friday night to get here. Couldn't get here soon enough. Every single week. And these were just... I was missing a lot of the humor because that's what makes the show stand out for me now, is how funny it generally is. But back in those days, I didn't see the humor as I do now with the show. It was just kind of, I love supernatural things, and it was scary enough, and it was just right up my alley. And I remember reading an article. There was an article in Fangoria magazine around the time about the resurgence and popularity of Kolchak the Night Stalker. Anyway, somewhere along the line, I figured out that Dan Curtis was a producer, and I didn't know exactly what a producer did, but I had somewhat of an idea, and that there were 2 television films, The Night Stalker and The Night Strangler, that came before the series. So in October of 1979, our local ABC affiliate ran at 11:30 on a Saturday night a double feature of the original Night Stalker film, which I had not seen at that point, and Trilogy of Terror. Well, I could not have been happier. This was just an amazing thing that I was looking forward to with high anticipation. And I remember that my father stayed up with me to watch The Night Stalker, but he decided to head to bed. This would have been about 1 in the morning. I think he decided to call it a night, as it were. But he allowed me to stay up, and so I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning and watched Trilogy of Terror for the second time, alone. And boy, it was as good, maybe even better, for the 9-year-old me than it was the first time around. And that was the way it was. Once you saw a film, there was no video back then, so you just had to wait until somebody else ran it again. I didn't get my first VCR until September of 1985. And by that time, Trilogy of Terror was available on VHS tape, courtesy of MPI Home Video. They had released it somewhere around 83, 84. And so our local video store had it, and it was one of the first tapes that I rented when I got my VCR, my VHS Panasonic, with the corded remote, I might add, in September of 1985. I got that, and I, with high anticipation again, my mother was at work, I was there alone, and by this time I was in the 10th grade, another phase of my life, and again, it was just so ultimately satisfying to me. This film was just as good as it ever was, And I really I dug it. And was thinking even then, wouldn't it be great if they did a sequel to this? Wouldn't it be great if they did? Well, they eventually did do a sequel, which wasn't so great. It's not terrible, but it's definitely doesn't have the effect of the first film for sure. And then, the DVD age came upon us a little over a decade later. I remember showing Trilogy of Terror once it came out on DVD to a girl I was dating around that time, and she laughed at it. I don't know, I guess she thought it was funny. The sound effects, it did not have the effect that it had on me. She was not unnerved. She just laughed at it through the entire sequence with the doll. And so that made me reevaluate that relationship, obviously. And then, recently we have gotten a Blu-ray release of Trilogy of Terror. It was released by Kino. I think it may be out of print at this point. Looks great. Terrific transfer of that with the a few extras there. An original archival commentary with Karen Black. I never had a chance to speak to Karen Black. We had her on our show, but it wasn't me who did the interviewing, and I really hate that. She passed in 2013, of course, but she often said that of all the films she had done, she'd been in Nashville and Five Easy Pieces and many other films that are iconic from the 1970s. That Trilogy of Terror, the one with the doll, was the one that people remembered her the most for. And so Trilogy of Terror has, for me, been one of those films that has stayed with me my entire life. I even have a coffee mug, which you'll see in this photo. That I drink out of quite often, and people wonder what the significance is. If they haven't seen the film, I have to explain it to them. So a couple of weeks ago, I was able to secure this, I guess you'd call it a prop from the film, even though it technically wasn't used in the film. And I posted a photo of it on Facebook, and a lot of people were just, it brought back a flood of memories for people. And I promised that I would do a video explaining my fascination with Trilogy of Terror and my history with the film. It is one of the great television films for me, and this doll, acquiring it finally, meant a lot to me, and I'm glad that I now have it. Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoyed any part of this, like and subscribe. I'll keep doing them regardless, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch it if you did. Until next time, take care.